Series of Auto Racing, featuring the International Race of Champions. Brought to you by...
We're going to begin our big day in sports with the second race in this year's World Series of Auto Racing, featuring the International Race of Champions with 12 of the world's greatest drivers competing in equally prepared cars. Then the scene will switch in this year's World Series of Auto Racing. Here's Al Michaels.
A hot day in Riverside, California, about 60 miles east of Los Angeles. Good crowd has gathered to watch the best drivers in the world. Hello again, everybody. I'm Al Michaels, welcoming you to Riverside International Raceway, a demanding road course. And for those of you who have not seen the IROC Series, here's the way the format goes. The first race has already been won. You saw the highlights of that with Al Unser picking up the win at Michigan. Now, for the second of 4 races in the IROC Series, we're at the road course at Riverside. The third race will also be run here, and then back to the oval track for the final race at Daytona. Now, the points on a cumulative basis, and after the first 3 races in the series, the top 9 drivers will qualify for the final race at Daytona, and the bottom 3 will be dropped. And big bucks at stake, because the winner of the series on a cumulative point basis will pick up a check for $50,000. Now, here are the standings after the first race at Michigan. The winner, Al Unser, picked up 21 points. Cale Yarborough came in second, so he has 17 points. Darrell Waltrip finished third with 14 points. Richard Petty was fourth with 12. And finishing in the 5th spot was Nilsson with 10, and so on down the line. So today, the second race in the IROC Series at Riverside, and one of the men working with me today is a former champion in his own right, Jackie Stewart. And Jackie, when you look at a course like this, you would figure that the drivers from the international road racing circuit would have the advantage. How much of an advantage, in your opinion?
Well, Al, they should have an advantage, but as we've seen here in practice, in fact, the road racing drivers, with the exception of Mario Andretti, and some say he's a road racer, others say he's an oval track racer, he's up front, but the other ones, people like Al Holbert, Jackie X, and Gunnar Nielsen, in fact, are down towards the back end of the starting grid. So the advantage that they hoped they would have round these twists and turns at Riverside against the USAC and NASCAR drivers really hasn't materialized. Of course, they know much more about the door handle to door handle racing that goes on in road racing, overtaking, passing, under braking, shifting gears, and so forth. But still, of course, you must remember 12 of the very best drivers in the world, so it's going to be tight in any case, Al.
And Jackie, they qualified in practice cars, then drew for the cars they will use in today's race. Our colleague in the pits, Chris Economaki, is with the USAC champion Tom Sneva, who may have drawn an unlucky number.
Tom, we saw that spectacular spill Al Holbert had at Michigan, where the car went upside down and spun around and stopped. And now here at Riverside, you've drawn that car. What are your feelings about getting into a car that was so badly wrecked?
Well, fortunately, they've repaired the car completely, and so Al's convertible, you might call it, should be in good shape for this race. I'm looking forward to it. hopefully I won't get seasick out there. I've been throwing the car around a little bit, so it'll ought to be a great race, and I'm sure the car's back in one piece and ready to go racing.
Are you confident that it's as good as the rest of them?
Well, not at this point, no, because it's probably been through a little bit more than some of the others, but they tell me that it's just like new and probably even better than new, so we'll go racing with it and see what happens.
Well, here's the point breakdown. 21 for first, 17 for second, and so on. All 4 races in this series are equally weighted. So we're moments away from the start. Race number 2 in the World Series of Auto Racing from Riverside. We're back, and as we approach the start of the IROC road race in Riverside, let's set the field. In row 1, car number 4, Gordon Johncock on the pole. Number 7 in the black car is Al Unser. In row 2, number 12 in the orange, Richard Petty. Flanked by number 11, Mario Andretti. In row number 3 in the silver car, number 9, Tom Sneva. And in the red car, number 8, Benny Parsons. The 4th row comprised of Johnny Rutherford in car number 10 and Al Holbert in the yellow number 2. In row number 5, car number 5, Gunnar Nilsson. And number 1, Jackie X. And in the final row, Darrell Waltrip in car number 6 and Cale Yarborough in the pink number 3. So there they are, a dozen of the best in the world set for the second of the IROC races at Riverside. 30 laps over the 2.54-mile road course. They anticipate green, and they get it, and we're underway with Al Unser and Gordon Johncock vying for the lead in the front row. Richard Petty and Mario Andretti in the second row. They're bunched together.
Al Unser takes it as he goes through there in the correct line there. He just nips in where he should be. He's got past Gordon Johncock there, so Al Unser leads the race as they go through the S's there, sort of threading that needle as that long snake runs through there. Nobody gone off the racetrack so far, so visibility in the back has stayed clear as they go into turn number 6. Al Unser, very smooth, very clean driver, as they all through there without any incidents at all.
First lap, Al Unser in the black car, number 7, on top. He had the second fastest qualifying time. Gordon Johncock, who had the fastest qualifying time, 101.247 miles an hour in car number 4, is in second place. And right behind them, in the orange car number 12, from NASCAR, Richard Petty.
Richard Petty trying to find a place there to get a hold of Gordon Johncock in that light blue car there as they stream onto the main straight on this first lap. This is where the cars draft or slipstream going along here. And this is a possibility just heading towards turn 9, the final corner in this racetrack where there might be some passing. So look for somebody to slip in here going into turn 9. The leaders go in there with Al Unser with a substantial lead as Richard Petty closes right up there and Gordon Johncock. Richard Petty driving very well at this time, but Al Unser has a fairly comfortable lead as they come out, ending this very first lap. No incidents, a clean race so far, but Richard Petty certainly putting some pressure on, and Mario Andretti closing up there in the blue car on the right-hand side of your screen, getting tight in against Richard Petty as they head for the S's through the first part of the S's. Very tricky part of the racetrack. It's on this corner during practice that Darrell Waltrip had an incident. You've got to be careful. You're in fifth. You're in top gear, fourth gear in these cars going through this very fast section of the racetrack.
So it is Al Unser who won the first IROC race at the Michigan International Speedway. He won over the oval and trying to duplicate the feat now over the road course at Riverside. Unser, who started in the outside position in the first row, on top. The pole sitter, Gordon Johncock, in second place. Not much variance through the first 2 laps. Petty still in third place in the orange car, number 12. Mario Andretti in car number 11, the dark blue car, in fourth place.
As you see the cars going through there, turn 7A and B, it's Cale Yarborough right at the back of the field. This driver didn't even get a lap of practice in, so therefore he really is being able to get a little bit of practice in here, obviously not falling away from the rest of the field. The very last car in this race here, there is Cale Yarborough, a man of enormous experience, not the sort of driver that's going to jump into a race car that he's never sat in before and make any wild errors or wild moves.
Yarborough trailing the field. The leader is Al Unser, Gordon Johncock second, Richard Petty is third, Mario Andretti fourth. We'll be right back at Riverside. Back at Riverside early in this 30-lap race over the demanding, twisting road course. The leader is Al Unser with Gordon Johncock racing second. Richard Petty is third. Mario Andretti is running fourth. And Al Holbert in the yellow car involved in the spectacular crash at Michigan is currently in fifth position.
These drivers are consciously keeping their tire temperatures down, trying to keep their brake temperatures down. And it's during this part of the racetrack that Richard Petty seems to have a definite advantage. And Gordon Johncock on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see Richard Petty trying to make a move there in Gordon Johncock, but it's very difficult. Look at it there. Look how close he is. He's trying to get him on the inside, but he can't possibly do that. Surely not. And he's doing it. What a move by Richard Petty in the Essex. He's gone through. What a classic move by Richard Petty.
Petty passing Johncock, a dangerous move over this very narrow road course, but he is second right now, back of Al Unser. There's Al Holbert in spot number 5. Let's look at that move again, Jackie, in slow motion.
Well, Richard Petty came up behind Gordon Johncock. Gordon Johncock in the blue car. Richard Petty almost drew alongside, but he was somewhere behind them there. It's a top gear corner, this very fast part of the circuit. He got inside of Gordon Johncock. He got him snookered so that Gordon Johncock could not retaliate. He still got part of the desert. Gordon Johncock collected the car, almost went off the road himself, but a very aggressive move for Richard Petty, not the sort of move that Petty normally makes.
Al Unser the leader, Richard Petty in second place, Johncock third, Andretti is fourth, and Al Holbert, there he is right at the screen trying to stay close to the leaders. Richard Petty with a great move and, of course, a great family heritage in stock car racing. His dad, his brother, and Richard Petty, they're three legends.
Come on, baby, let the good times roll. Come on, baby, let me thrill your soul.
Richard Petty's voice in this song truly reflects his life in racing. From meager beginnings in the countryside of Randleman, North Carolina, and born into a family of Southern-style stock car racers, Richard Petty's legend still grows. A legend that was handed down from Lee to his son Richard, who then made the Petty name forever an unforgettable chapter in American sports.
Well, when we first started racing, we had a little bitty place, a reaper shed with a dirt floor and all this kind of stuff. And then when I first started running, we did have a cement floor and a roof on it and some sides on the building. And, you know, I had no idea that it would come into anything like what it has now. I figured I could make a living out of it, and I've been fortunate enough to do it. And, you know, if it was more than a living, then that's just a plus on our side. This is where we lived when Daddy first got in the racing business. I guess I was 6 or 7, and I lived here until I was about 14 years old.
Well, Petty's made almost $3 million in stock car racing, and now this is home. And it's here where Richard and his wife, Linda, relax in an idyllic setting.
Actually, he wasn't famous when I married him. So you see, I've kind of grown along with this, too. But all in all, it's good. And I would feel bad that he was a person that was, you know, a noted person that you read about in the papers, and that when he went out, that nobody paid any attention to him. You know, I'm glad that the people think enough of him, that they do want to come up and speak to him, or that they want his autograph. This shows that he's a well-followed person.
And the patriarch relaxing here, Lee Petty.
If a man gets in a race car and he thinks anything at all about hitting somebody or running into a wall or something like it, then he won't get in the race car and do any kind of job at all. He might go out there and run around, but he won't do any racing, and he will not be a winner. If you did think about the dangers, then the best thing for you to do is go look for another job. The reason I drive today is not as much for the money as I just love to drive a race car. I don't know if I love the competition as much as some of the other people do, but undoubtedly I do, or I wouldn't love driving a race car.
He loves the competition today because you can see him in second place right now after that great pass. Petty running second. The leader is still Al Unser, who can take a big step toward the IROC title with a win here. It would be his second in 2 races. So it is Unser out in front. Petty is racing second. Gordon Johncock in spot number 3. Mario Andretti in car number 11 is 4th. And Al Holbert from IMSA running 5th. We'll be right back. Al Unser Spencer continues to lead in this second race of the IROC series as you watch a dozen of the world's greatest drivers competing in identically prepared Camaros at Riverside.
The one thing that I notice here, that Richard Petty seems to be driving his car very aggressively. It seems to be sliding around a lot, but there you see this very tight race between Mario Andretti and Al Holbert as they come through this long series of S's here. The lead car goes through quite an advantage over King Richard Petty. Then you've got Gordon Johncock. Then you've got this Mario Andretti Al Holbert race. Al Holbert trying to find a place to get past Mario Andretti. Now coming up to turn 7 is a possibility for overtaking. It's a little bit on his tiptoes. These cars are not as comfortable under braking as I would like to see them. And Al Holbert trying to make a move on him, but he doesn't get it. We've seen a lot of, he's almost hitting Mario Andretti. They were almost touching there. And when these cars touch, there's cow catchers underneath the cars this time. He's quite happy to sit behind Mario Andretti. Andretti in 1977, winning a lot of Grand Prix in the World Championship Series, could easily have been the world champion of 1977, has made this move to road racing in seriousness, and certainly this is road racing.
Munzer still has the lead, and of course with a win here today, he could take a commanding step toward the IROC championship, which means $50,000 to the winner. The series now in its 5th year, and over $800,000 in prize money has been distributed to the world's greatest drivers in the previous 4 years of the World Series of Auto Racing. Gordon Johncock right now racing in 3rd spot back of Unser and Petty. Gordon Johncock, a great name over the years in USAC racing. And you go back to the year 1973. The tragedy marred, rain delayed, Indianapolis 500. They were supposed to go on Monday. It rained on Tuesday, and finally on Wednesday they got the race underway, but it was held to only 366 miles by the weather. But at the end, it was Gordon Johncock who took the checkered flag, the 1973 Indianapolis 500 winner, the red flag at the 366-mile mark, and the checkered flag belonging to Johncock. Then, in 1977, it looked like Gordy was going to win it in a race that was run under perfect conditions. But with 17 laps to go, Jim McKay and Jackie Stewart were there to call it.
So Gordon Johncock is moving toward what could be his 2nd victory in the Indianapolis 500.
He's pulled across.
What's happened?
Smoke. Gordon Johncock, the leader of the Indy 500, is running down the side of pit lane now. Still on the racetrack. He's going to make profit.
We've seen sort of things so many times in Indianapolis. Just when it looked like it was all wrapped up, there he is off the track. It's all over for Gordon Johncock. A.J. Foyt leads the Indianapolis 500.
And when he comes out for refuge, he likes to go down to Sundown, Arizona, a town where obviously claustrophobia is no problem.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably still green there on top that they're picking yet. I'm having a little place right now where the barley didn't come up. It doesn't make any difference what I do, even if I'm playing cards. Like Dad's up here with me for a few days, and we've been doing a little hunting together. We go in at night and play cards, and you know, I don't even like to lose when I'm playing cards with my dad. You know? Whatever I do, I like to win at, you know, and I think maybe that's possibly what makes me competitive when I'm racing.
Right. There's about 30 yards of them, and a dang coyote just comes charging out of the brush, runs right through the middle of them. They all take off. We got the coyote, but we didn't get no geese. So,
I know.
We had them. Yeah, we had them.
There might be coyotes down there watching them right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I really never had that much time to do that much hunting when I was younger. I guess maybe I did a little more fishing when I was younger, but my father here, he kind of kept me pretty busy on the farm. There they go. I know, like in the super modified days, guys that I ran with, that, you know, you almost knew sooner or later that they were either going to get themselves hurt bad or they were going to get somebody else hurt bad because of the way they drove, the chances they took. You know, sure, sometimes it looks good. You know, you do a heck of a job. But you also got to think about farther down the line. You do a heck of a job for a few races, then you're going to be laying in the hospital maybe for a year or something like that, and that's not going to get you very far. I think you've got to think about the future in the way you drive. I think most guys make their own breaks. I've been pretty fortunate. I've been racing now for 23 years, and I think I guess I've been in the hospital twice. I guess I really could never think of a race that I went into and just said, oh, well, so what? You know, if I win, I do, and if I don't, I don't. I might have had that feeling before a race, before I get into a car sometimes, you know, maybe things haven't been going too good for you somewhere down the line, a couple, 3 days before that. But once you get in that race car and get out there on the track and get running with the rest of them, it just all comes back. You forget about your problems and, you know, and then you're competitive once again.
For Gordon Johncock, who is in third spot right now, the problem is to overtake the leaders. At Riverside, Al Unser is out in front, maintaining his advantage over Richard Petty in second place. And into the pits right now, Benny Parsons in the red car, number 8. Benny Parsons into the pits.
Well, during these very short pit stops, when you lose a lot of time like this, it's almost impossible. We have Chris Economaki down in the pits there. He's checking up what might be the case. Do you know what the story is, Chris?
No, but Benny is right here. Perhaps we can get a word from him as they change the right front tire. What's the trouble, Benny?
Right rear tire went flat.
There you have, right from the driver, and it's going to cost him a lot of positions here in this International Race of Champions. Unless a yellow flag comes out, he is hopelessly in last place. The work is going rather slowly. He said the right rear tire, and the crew is changing the right front as well. This will give him a little bit better car to go out on the track with when it's all over with, but the time consumed makes it next to impossible for him to make it up. And now, away he goes. Back to you, Al.
And so more bad luck for Parsons, who was involved in the accident with Al Holbert in race number 1. Unser is the leader, Petty second, Johncock third in the IROC race 2 at Riverside. The leader is Al Unser in car number 7. He was the second fastest qualifier, 101.227 miles an hour. Running in second place is Richard Petty, who made the great pass, getting by Johncock in the S's. Gordon Johncock is running in third spot. Mario Andretti is fourth, and Al Holbert, who was on the tail of Andretti, has dropped back a bit right now. So the battle at the moment going on for third place right there between Gordon Johncock and Mario Andretti.
Mario Andretti, oh, and he's gone off the road. Mario Andretti has half spun the car. He collected it. What a wonderful recovery Mario Andretti had there. He tucked his nose in behind there and in between Gordon Johncock going in, and somebody else has spun, Al Holbert. Al Holbert spun off there. The reason that he spun off probably was that he saw the behavior of Mario Andretti, stood on the anchors, got the car sideways, and of course off the hard surface. Now that's the reaction of a driver who thinks that there's going to be a big shunt up front, a big crash up front. So perhaps we can see this once again in slow motion, because what Mario Andretti did was tuck himself in behind, and there the back end of the car went loose. Mario Andretti applied opposite lock. The car bounced over that desert surface there. How Mario Andretti collected that car, I'll never know. A wonderful recovery by Mario Andretti as he comes out of that, what should have been a spin in my book, with great reflex action. So Mario Andretti collected that. He may well have damaged the front spoiler on this Camaro, because it's very, in fact he has, you can see that. Mario Andretti's front spoiler on the left-hand side of the car, right-hand side of camera there, you can see the spoiler's been ripped away where it hit the ground, and Tom Sneever's had an accident. He's got it right into the barrier, has Tom Sneever. He's spinning the car to try and get the back end round. He's not coming away from the barrier.
And with Sneva pinned up against the rail there, Jackie, the yellow flag comes out. Laps run under the yellow do not count. Sneva had been racing in ninth. The man back of him now going into the pits, Cale Yarborough, and pitting under the yellow. That will cost him 1 lap. Chris Economaki is down in the pits.
But Yarborough's got a back bumper torn off, and he's calling instructions out to the pit crew. We're going to take a look back here at some of the metal work that was torn off. Taking care of work on the back and right side tires on the car. The bodywork does not seem to be too badly damaged. The right rear corner has suffered some work here. In fact, we're going to get a word with Neil Willer. He's asking for something cold to drink. Tough break for the man who has done so well in NASCAR stock car racing. How did it shape up, Cal?
Well, it was pretty rough back there in the back, Chris. Tom, Steve, and I got together and spun out down there.
There you have it. Cale and Tom spun out, but he's waiting and anxious to get back in. He has had 3 full glasses of a cold drink while he's waiting here. It's brutally hot here in the desert here in Riverside, California today. Okay, back to you, Al.
Yarborough and Sneva, and the yellow flag, and Tom, his car still hung up against the guardrail, emerging from the Camaro right now, the first man to break the 200-mile-an-hour barrier at Indianapolis, and the 1977 USAC champion, Tom Sneva, relaxing with his children in Indianapolis.
But we were walking in it, me and Jennifer and Joey.
We're not the typical family. We're not going to work from 8 to 5 every day, and so it's really good. We do a lot of traveling, but yet I'll be home a week, gone a week type thing. So I probably end up spending as much time at home as the average guy. The father of a household, he goes to work in the morning, comes home at night, and he's with the kids for a couple hours at night, and then they have to go to bed. While when I'm home all day long, and so it gives me a lot of time to be with my family.
And part of that family includes brother Jerry, who finished 10th at Indianapolis in '77.
We competed in just about everything all the way through when we were growing up and all the way through high school, and just we raced everything we could. We grew up with racing, and like we raced tricycles together and bicycles and little roller carts you roll down the hills. And what happened when we were little?
Well, I think it started off with a little pedal car, and we only had one of them, and naturally there was two of us, so it was a competition who would get the pedal car every morning, and Jerry had to figure it out if he got up first in the morning that he'd have the pedal car. But he also had long curly hair when he was young, because I was a boy and they wanted the girl next and didn't get that, I guess. And so he used to wear a bobby pin to keep it out of his eyes so I could see where he was going in the pedal car. And I knew if all I had to do was steal that, and I'd get the pedal car back, because he'd go crying into Mom.
I'd have to go in the house and get my hair out of my eyes so I could see again.
Well, the unsung heroines in auto racing would have to include the wives, Sharon Sneva.
Of course, there's always a chance of an accident. I experienced it myself in 1975 when Tom had his crash at Indianapolis. It happened in front of me, and I remember thinking at the time, you know, that I'd been around long enough that I knew an impact like that and fire that's severe, and I thought he had less than 10% chance for survival. And then when I saw that he walked away, I felt that a miracle had really happened. That it's hard for me to describe my feelings at that time, that, you know, I had actually seen him get up out of that car that moments ago had disintegrated in front of my eyes. It isn't easy, but it's something that all the wives have to face, that there is that possibility.
A visit with the Snevas, and it's hard to believe as you look at Tom so involved in the rigors and dangers of auto racing now. Just a few years back, he was a school teacher.
So the wreckage of Tom Sneva's car gets towed away there. This, the second race in the IROC series. It means that there are going to be 3 drivers left out of the final race at Daytona. Tom Sneva is going to have to try very hard indeed in the third of this series to get enough points to get to Daytona.
Back at Riverside, they're cleaning up the track, so we are racing right now under the yellow. These laps do not count. There's the leader, Al Hunter, out in front. Richard Petty is racing second. Gordon Johncock in the third spot. And this is the second race in the IROC series. And one of the spectators here today is Paul Newman, the great motion picture star. Certainly no stranger to auto racing. Jackie Stewart visited with him.
Paul, very few people would know that Paul Newman, actor, is in fact a very successful racing driver. In fact, a national champion here in America. What about that championship?
Well, the way you win that national championship is to make sure that the 2 guys in front of you break.
Come on, there must be more to it than that.
No, we had some fun out. It was a good race.
How many years have you been racing them?
Well, I've been racing altogether about 5 years, 4 of them actively. And I got interested in it when I did a picture called Winning about 8 years ago, but it took me 4 years before I could get the summer off to get a license.
So you got sort of bitten in the bug?
I got bitten by the bug.
Sort of threading the needle. Well, then I took Paul out on the racetrack in a normal street car to let him see the line through some of the Riverside corners. You get easily damaged, so you tend to go round and about this line here, trying not to upset the car too much. Donald Waltrip, by the way, went up on that wall there, so I'd advise you against that.
This wall here?
Yeah, he got up there. Yeah,
that's a strange place to go on.
Well, we've got Paul Newman now into the Camaro. We've got him in Jackie Stewart's racing overalls, and we've got him in somebody else's crash helmet. Do you feel cozy in there?
The cockpit certainly feels a little different. Pedals aren't anywhere near right.
Well, we hope it's going to be at least some way comfortable on the way around. Maybe you'll talk us round, Paul. Maybe try and give us as many comments as you can as you go round. Try to not to make too many swear words, but see what you can give us.
Okay.
Okay, so Paul Newman's going to set off. So Paul Newman in the Camaro, one of the cars that will be in the Camaro race. He pulls out of the pits, engages second gear. There you see with his sneakers on that he drives with normally when he has competed in American racing. Very talented driver, very well coordinated. You see him going around there with our cameras on the car. We have cameras inside and outside this Camaro. Paul Newman went remarkably quick in this Camaro around there. Didn't take long to heat it up. There you see a front-end shot, and there you see him heel and towing. Very cleverly done.
Well, for starters here, the car is so heavy, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of brakes.
Well, Paul's saying the car feels heavy and the brakes don't seem to work too efficiently. This is the reason, of course, he doesn't drive cars of this weight normally, and the brakes on the Camaro seem to be fairly difficult to press. He's pressing them there, he's accelerating at the same time to change down into this left-hand bend here.
Blind corner here, and it's slippery as hell.
The blind corner he's referring to is 7A, and 7B he's going round now. 7A is a sort of adverse camber. He accelerates down the straight where he gets a little bit of rest. A rev limiter is the thing that stops an engine from blowing if a driver misses a gear.
Not really handle like a sports car.
Of course, Paul Newman won his national championship in a sports car, which is a much lighter car.
Have trouble braking this thing and downshifting because of the replacement of the pedal.
It was the first time he had been in a Camaro, and I think he adjusted, in fact, very quickly to the driving of this. He was very smooth. I had an opportunity to speak to Paul after he finished.
I think everybody ought to have one of these in his garage.
You do? How did you like it?
Well, it's giant and lumbering compared to the quick kind of handling that you would get with it. Must be 10 turns lock to lock on this thing.
Hard work? I mean, how would it be for the full race here at 30 laps?
Well, I'd have to think about that. But then it's a lot different being in a race than it is to just go out and hot lap something.
No doubt about that, as a dozen of the world's best drivers are once again racing under the green at Riverside International Raceway. Al Unser is leader. Richard Petty second. Gordon Johncock is third. Mario Andretti is fourth. Then in fifth spot, Johnny Rutherford. Gunnar Nilsson is sixth. Darrell Waltrip is seventh. So 30 laps over the twisting 2.54-mile course at Riverside. Good battle right now for fourth spot. Remember the points in this series on a cumulative basis. So it's a big advantage, obviously, to finish up near the top. This is the second of 4 races in the IROC series with $50,000 at stake for the winner.
And these cars, of course, very evenly matched. They've gone a long way, and we're trying to get a pass going into turn 9 there. You see Mario Andretti and Johnny Rutherford there. Mario Andretti in the dark-colored car, Johnny Rutherford in the red car as they come through this very long, slightly banked turn 9 at Riverside in California. Difficult corner. I found it very difficult, and I had an opportunity to drive one of those cars during the weekend. But look at them touching the desert there as they come through. Alan's in the dark car, Richard Petty in the red car there. King Richard Petty really breathing down the neck of that black car, really pushing him as he goes through there.
Al Unser, of course, is the hot man right now. Al Unser, the winner in IROC race number 1 at Michigan International Speedway, and trying to pick up another 21 points. 21 points to the winner of each of the IROC races. So he, if he can hold on to the lead in this race, would assume a commanding lead in the series.
And he's using every part of this racetrack. He's not giving that car behind him, Richard Petty, any opportunity. Al Unser going through there in the black car. The famous Richard Petty, very close to him, seems to gain slightly there on 7B. Look how close he is. He's using all the road. He's really getting on the desert there as they're coming up there. Very tight. Going down this back stretch now where he's trying to draft them. Not an easy thing to do in these cars because they're so evenly matched.
Petty trying to close in on Unser. A reminder, Riverside now just 2.5 laps remaining in this 30-lap IROC race, and it's still Al Unser and Richard Petty running 1-2. Gordon Johncock is third. Mario Andretti is fourth. Gunnar Nilsson has moved up to fifth position. And moving into sixth spot, Darrell Waltrip from NASCAR. Johnny Rutherford has dropped back 2 notches to seventh. The world's greatest drivers competing in identically prepared machines, and so it is a true test of the driver's skills, and Al Unser has been the truest so far. He won at Michigan. He is leading here. There's the battle for fifth. Right now, let's go down to the pits for a report from Chris Economaki.
One maneuver we haven't seen today in the course of the race is the outside pass on turn 9. Last year and in years past, when they had older Camaros, were going a little bit slower, drivers would pull out and go around the outside of a rival. We may see it, however, in the case of Richard Petty and Al Unser before this one is over, because it's the only way he apparently can do it.
And with Unser running first and Petty second, that is the spot to which Chris referred. Turn number 9. Unser leading, Petty second, but Petty will not be able to pass him on this lap. Unser maintains the advantage, and we have only 2 laps remaining. Petty staying on his tail, trying to force the leader into a mistake.
And he's very close to Al Unser as they go through the S's. This is where he's been doing. Look how unstable the car was going through there for Richard Petty. The car went into a sort of tank slapper as you get them in motorcycles. He was really untidy going through there. He just collected it very well. He doesn't seem to have lost a great deal, although he certainly lost a few yards there on Al Unser, and he can't afford to lose anything in this race. Al Unser working hard. Look at his arms thrashing from side to side there as he tries to keep control of the car, exiting turn 6 here. Look how he's using the road on the right-hand side, just in case Richard Petty tries to dip through there under braking inside him. He's not allowing him to do that. Richard Petty taking a wider line through turn 7. The car seems to handle very well. The black car, the lead car, number 7, Al Unser. Look how close Richard Petty is as he comes out of here. Really accelerating down. Al Unser coming out with a slight advantage, getting into the draft and the slipstream. King Richard Petty knows that there are only 2 laps to go. Can he make his overtaking move now? Going into this famous turn 9, and he's going to try and make a move on him now as he goes in there, but no. Al Unser gets the brakes off a little bit, and they're going into this last lap after they get round this famous turn 9. If Richard Petty's going to do it, he has to do it now. Further back in the field, by the way, Darrell Waltrip has got an advantage on Gunnar Nilsson. With the white flag, only 1 lap to go. Can Richard Petty try and sneak in the inside? This is where he did Gordon Johncock before. Al Unser's moving on the racetrack. He can't do it. He's not going to do it this place in this lap. Al Unser, enormous experience, Al. Very unlikely for him to make a mistake now.
Unser won the race in Michigan. Richard Petty, who's right on his tail right now, finished 4th to pick up 12 points at Michigan. 21 points to the winner of the race, 17 for second. So it is Unser trying to make it back-to-back. Unser won the race in Michigan by slingshotting past Cale Yarborough on the final turn, and that's the position that Richard Petty will try to have to set himself up in as we come down to the end of the IROC race at Riverside. But it's Unser who looks like he has things in command.
This is a crucial part of the racetrack now. If Richard Petty really makes a good job of this final part of turn 7 and turn 7.5 here as they go through there, Al Unser's car accelerating away, but Richard Petty is in the ideal position for drafting here, Al. This is the very last chance that he can have to get Al Unser. As they come down here, Al Unser knows that he's not going to give an inch, obviously, as they come through here, the King. And Richard Petty's making his move to try to go to the outside because Al Unser really blocked him off as he went in there. He tried to move up on the inside, and Al Unser just simply blocked him. Richard Petty had no hope of getting through there.
Well, here they come out of turn number 9, and it is Al Unser who will cross the finish line ahead by a car length ahead of Richard Petty in a 2-man race. And there is Gordon Johncock. He will take the checkered flag to finish in 3rd place to pick up a total of 14 points. And in 4th place, Mario Andretti to pick up 12 points. Darrell Waltrip winds up 5th. Nielsen is 6th. Johnny Rutherford crossing the line in spot number 7. And Jackie Hicks winds up 8th. Winner in car number 7, Richard Petty second, John Cock and Andretti third and fourth, and there you see the rest of the standings. So 2 in a row for Al Unser, slingshot past Cale Yarborough at Michigan to win IROC race number 1. Here today at Riverside in IROC number 2, it is Al Unser who goes wire to wire for the win.
In this case, he's trying in the very last lap. Richard Petty trying to get Al Unser coming out of turn 9, but it wasn't to be. Al Unser had put himself very comfortably in the right part of the racetrack. He had done this in the last lap without any risk of making a mistake.
Unser now with 42 points in the 2 races, and Al Unser is with Chris Economaki.
2 straight, Al. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chris. It's a real good feeling. I thought that Petty was going to get me there at the last.
Well, it looked that way, but it looked like you really had a wider car the last couple of laps than you had early in the race.
Had what?
A wider car.
Well, I did use up the racetrack. If he'd have got alongside of me, I would have gave him racing room, but he wasn't able to, so I did use up the track.
How much looking in the mirror did you do, Al?
Well, I knew he was there.
Okay, any frights for you at all? Any trouble during the race?
No, just Richard on me. It made it very hard after that yellow flag. He never did lose sight of me.
Had it gone a few more laps, do you think he might have gotten you?
Well, it didn't, did it?
No, Al Unser knows all about it. The winner of the 2nd straight IROC.
And so Unser now has the maximum 42 points through 2 races. Al Unser picking up 21 in each of the first 2 IROC races. Leads Richard Petty by 13 points. Darrell Waltrip is third. There you see the standings, the top 5, and the rest of the field. And remember, only 9 of the 12 qualify for the finale at Daytona. Richard Petty second today in the IROC race at Riverside. Here he is with Chris Economaki in the pits.
A little worn, huh, Richard?
Yeah, just a little bit. Got real warm in the last couple of laps.
Boy, you gave us a really great race. You made a couple of tries. What was the trouble?
Well, no trouble, really. It's just that these cars are so dang even that, you know, it's hard to pass anybody. And I could catch Al in a couple of the corners, then he could outrun me in a couple others. So where I could catch him, he was holding me up, and then the other places I couldn't catch him. So, you know, as far as getting around the track, we got around the track about the same speed.
Well, it was a fine race. You look a little worn out.
Well, you know, I ain't used to running this long races, you know.
That from a man who normally goes 500 miles. Today he goes 76 and winds up second to Al Unser. Another reminder that 2 weeks from today we'll have race number 3 in this year's World Series of Auto Racing to determine the 9 drivers who will qualify for the final at Daytona. The executive producer of ABC Sports is Roone Arledge. International Race of Champions Series produced by Ned Steckel and directed by Larry Cam. Associate producer Chris Carmody. Associate director John DeLisa. Technical director Bob Bleiweiss. Stay tuned next over most of these ABC stations for our live coverage of the Professional Bowlers Tour, followed by